Alex Karp, Palantir CEO, out here. And speaking about Palantir, where the company's going, what they're up to, the world, all types of fun subjects here. So I thought instead of me just watching this video alone, let me go ahead and react to it on the reaction channel, share this with you guys and kind of share my perspectives and opinions on everything Alex Karp, Palantir CEO, speaks about in this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it as always. Thank you so much for everybody that subscribed to the channel. I appreciate y'all. Let's just get straight into this. And by the way, just so you guys know, I put together, if you make over 100K a year, I put together a free workshop for you. So that's about investing in this year and beyond. So if you want to check that out, if you're somebody that makes over 100K a year, check out the pinned comment down there for free access to that. Let's get into this.
So there's been a lot of discussions around large language models, which is kind of seeping into the broader discussion as AI, and less discussion around what arguably was the most important event in AI ever, which was that the Ukrainians used technology, broadly speaking, to identify targets using algorithms that are trained over a very large country. And obviously, the determinative variable in Ukraine was and is their heroism and their technical acuity. But one of the big issues in software, so we've been at this for 20 years, was, when we started, people thought software was largely a fraud. Then we changed the course of especially European history by making it possible to stop terrorism in accordance with democratic norms. But still, really, until I think recently, no one saw really important events shifting. And then you have the large language models. Now, so if you just collapse them, because I don't want to take up, there's probably a lot to say here, but the combination of AI on the battlefield and the commercial use of large language models are both very valuable, but they kind of hallucinate sometimes. They don't do.
By the way, if anybody's kind of new to the AI space and you're like, what the heck is this large language model? That's things like ChatGPT and being able to, spit you out a bunch of information, write you a book potentially if you need a book, right? You can tell it some prompts and then it's going to go ahead and find that information or do whatever task you need it to do. So that's what a large language model is. ChatGPT is obviously the most famous one of the large language models.
Well, there's no memory function and they can't tell you how they got to their conclusion, but they wielded correctly can change.
And so what Palantir's done specifically recently, that's been, in my opinion, a game changer and will be a game changer for Palantir's business model over time, is they've kind of adapted the large language model technology in terms of being able to, if you are, let's say, military and you want to give certain prompts inside the large language model and ask it certain questions, it's going to be able to spit you out those questions. You can have it even do things. They've done some incredible demos in regards to this. And if you're a company, let's say you're an executive of a company or something like that, you should be able to, essentially give this model prompts, the Palantir model, right? And it's going to be able to tell you exactly what you need to know. It can even make decisions in there and even spit you out what the best decision is, given this certain information and whatnot, and taking all these different things into account. And so it's really, really fascinating. It's going to be, in my opinion, pretty game-changing for government entities that obviously adapt this technology, and as well as obviously companies as well, right? If I'm a company, I need to know, I just want to be able to, say, what's our gross margin of this versus this product? What's the next product, and how can we save money? And I want to be able to give me intelligent answers that ultimately I can say, you know what, that sounds great. Let's go ahead and do that. And that's AI. That's the beauty of AI, is hopefully making better decisions for your company, for your government, for potentially a military.
Businesses and will change the battlefield. These things are largely produced in America. So that's just like a weird fact. We have a lot of crazy stuff going on in America. You may not be aware of it, but it's true. And at the same time, or maybe because of it, and Americans don't appreciate this, you have this country which is producing, just where the tech landscape has shifted dramatically in the last year. And it shifted because of software developments and And then so, America's primary adversary, which is mainland China, and Russia are there's a tendency to underestimate our adversary. I constantly yelling at people at home that that's really not smart. But, it is just currently, and this is then how do you work with this with Western allies that also have a tech scene? But yeah, America's ability to produce AI, both categories, and its use is just, and then what's going to happen in the commercial side, which is less relevant for all of us here, is
the point Alex Karp made right there. Don't overlook that point. He was just talking about how the technology landscape is changing dramatically, specifically over the past year, and because of software, okay? And the reason I think that's important is every single time we see a major technology shift, okay, it's because of software. It's not because of hardware. This iPad right here, you look at it and it's like, oh man, iPad was a game changer, right? Tablets. You could say iPhones. I don't have one of my phones by me right now, right? The iPhone's such a game changer, right? Smartphones. And you think about the hardware. It's the physical device. That's not what makes the device. It's the software. It's always been the software. iOS is what makes the iPhone, and the iPad, right? Android is what makes those Samsung smartphones and all the other ones that use Android special. It's always the software. It's always been the software, right? And obviously, Apple owns iOS. Google owns Android. It's what it's always been. It's never been about the hardware. It never will be about the hardware. It's always about the software and what that can do and make a tremendous, progress as far as technology goes. And so, I think that's a phenomenal point. Just like all the biggest tech companies in the world became the biggest tech companies in the world because of software. It's not because of hardware. It's always been about software. That's always been the thing, man.
America's economy, there's a lot of fraud still in the AI market and a lot of the things, and also a lot of unhappy people because they have nothing to sell. But the people who can produce and make these algorithms, whether they're a large language model.
Was that a shot at Elon Musk? I do wonder if that was a little shot at Elon Musk there.
Hours work are just going to do very well, and you're going to see the U.S. economy adapt to this and adopt this very, very quickly. So there's a big structural shift that's happening that will affect the world politically because the economic disjunction here. The short version is these large language models make people who are winning much stronger, and people who, and there's a whole economic element, which is why maybe in Denmark, I'm sure in Denmark I'd be voting for you, but in America I'm still on the left, which is probably in America you're far left. But we both believe poor people should have teeth, and that's a luxury item.
Alex Karp knows how to make friends, man. He knows how to make friends, clearly.
It really will exacerbate people with strong ability to adopt tech, and strong enterprises are just going to lurch forward. Enterprises, governments, and those that are resistant, parochial, only want to buy these things from their buddy, their friend, their own country, are really going to suffer.
Thank you. Anders, you've spoken about the need for a...
This gentleman, by the way, is a former NATO Secretary General and Chairman of the Alliance. Okay.
Technological Alliance of Democracies. I encourage everyone to listen to the podcast you joined Gene Meserve on called NatSec Tech. It's really very good. And in it, you talk about this alliance of democracy, Technological Alliance of Democracies. I'm wondering if you can preview the podcast. Tell us a little bit now about your thoughts on a technological alliance of democracies.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Karp for his courage when it comes to combining technology and the defense and also the promotion.
and
If you want to watch what that gentleman says, obviously you can go to the actual video and watch what that gentleman says. But I believe most people are here because they want to hear what Alex Karp, Palantir CEO, has to say, and my opinions on that.
Authoritarian regimes when it comes to existing as well as emerging technologies. The one country we want to make sure that we include on the free world side as well is Taiwan, as we've all seen how vital Taiwanese technology has been in helping us through the COVID pandemic. But can democracies and the free world compete with authoritarian regimes who may not have the same legal or ethical constraints?
Yeah, I have a slightly variant view of that. I don't think the issue is, for example, large language models, we have a huge advantage because I don't know how you build a large language model with the 50,000 constraints you're going to have in Iran, China, and Russia. And
that's a great point. That's a great point.
In any case, the innovation's all being done on the west coast of the U.S. Where and I really believe in this kind of frameworks, where the issue I would say we have in the West is, can we stop buying software that doesn't work? Like we have these huge budgets. We spend, like, every country in the world has a thing to buy software from their own country. Great. 1% of your budget, 5% of your budget has to go to software that actually has been proven. And while I'm much less worried about China or Russia's ability to outcompete us, I'm much more worried about our ability to buy fraud and things that don't work. And then we're just pretending they work instead of implementing things where we have an advantage. And on the large language models, we have a problem in the West because, and in AI in general, there are only 2 or 3 companies in the world that actually have products that work in this area. What do the rest of the companies do? They lie, we have to have a discussion, can't do it, can't work with it, the issues are too complicated. And like, you sit there and have technical discussions with them about, well, actually you can do it, this is how you segment the data, these are the norms. By the way, I think Denmark should be in charge of this because I'm always skeptical of the completely objective. I like a country that has a high rule of law but has picked a side. So I think Denmark should be in charge of this. It shouldn't be America, it shouldn't be other countries. But the primary issue for us is not whether China, and we're not even using these technologies for the same place. You know, in America, I have a PG version of this. It's like if you want a cheesesteak on Tuesday and you've told your partner you only have a cheesesteak on Wednesday, so that we don't have to talk about the obvious thing that you have a private life that includes things you may not want your kids and your family and everyone knowing. But we're not using these for surveillance.
I don't want my kids knowing about my cheesesteak habit, man. Come on now.
Our problem in the West is for example, software is not theoretical. It has to, in the military context, we have to start buying software that's been proven on the battlefield. A significant portion of our budget has to go to that. And we have to be very honest that everything else may not work. And that doesn't mean people shouldn't have other things. And so when you're...
All right, what's Alex Karp up to right now, okay? What's he doing here, okay? I hope we can all read into this, okay? Clearly, Alex Karp right now is giving a sales presentation on Palantir's products. He is, I'm sure, in a room with a lot of influential people, maybe executives of companies, maybe leaders of different government entities, maybe, a lot of other people that are in close contact with these decision makers, right? And he's basically saying, we actually got the real deal. We got the real deal Holyfield. Sign up for our product and actually have a real deal Holyfield versus these fraud products. That's basically his opinion, right? And I'm not going to say that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what he's up to there, okay? And so, this is how he's closing deals, okay? The man's closing deals out there. And he's giving everybody second thoughts about whatever software products they're signed up for versus why are you not with the best of breed? Why are you not with Palantir?
One of the things I like about Denmark being involved in this is if you're going to have norms, those norms actually have to be applied. And that's our central issue. The innovation thing of like, can we outcompete China or Russia? Ask the Chinese and Russians. It's like, we're not out competing China and Russia on AI. We are the only market right now on large language models, and that's going to stay that way for a long time. And on AI on the battlefield, not turned towards surveillance, you can see the results already. But we do have a problem internally in our countries that we have an ecosystem that is not 100% focused on our advantages. It's focused on technologies of the past. And we're not going to win on those technologies. Like, I'm not against hardware, but the idea that we're any better on hardware than Russia and China is not true. We are better at one thing, institutional enterprise software, especially AI. And we're the best at that. And in business, what you learn is, or what I'm constantly preaching in my crazy company is, I don't want to compete with somebody who on their battlefield. Let them compete against us on institutional enterprise war software. And that's what we need to do as united countries. And that's going to require a huge shift in every country because, quite frankly, people like norms and like enforcing the norms until they find out that their local provider can't live up to those norms. And then the norms aren't applied. And those norms are crucial to our civil liberties. They're crucial to the warfighter. They're crucial to proving the software works. And that's what we really need to get done very, very quickly, because then we can stop having these irrational discussions about people who are countries that are just not good at this. I mean, like, you know, Russia spends about $65 billion a year on military every year. And I mean, everyone in Europe knows how good they are at fighting. But like, this is a warrior culture. And look what happens. And this is why, like, we need to reorient very quickly to, we are going to, when I've said this in America, it's like, let's have a 10% of our budget scare our enemy budget. That should be our budget. 10% goes to things that scare the living. I'm told not to curse anymore, but yeah.
Actually, I share your optimism. I think free and open societies, market economy, capitalism, if you would put it that way, produce much more innovative skills, entrepreneurship, new ideas. So in that respect, we can easily outcompete the autocrats. However, we should be aware of the fact that, for instance, artificial intelligence can be used by autocrats to control their people, to monitor what is going on, to manipulate.
Not just autocrats. It can be used by all of us.
That's right. That's right. But I think in a democracy you have checks and balances to counter. You have a critical media, etc., etc. For Putin and Xi Jinping, it's much easier to use artificial intelligence in a bad way. So I do not believe in the theory that we could make a pause or we should stop the development of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, I don't know what. That will only be to the advantage of the bad guys, because they will continue irrespective of what we are doing.
My personal view is, if they would act in a more rational way, I'd be totally in favor of a pause. I do think these technologies are very dangerous. And while I think the risks of abuse in the Western countries are much lower, and that's why I'm very pro-West and built a company that's central mission is to be pro-West, and endured protests in Silicon Valley and barbed wire and being yelled at by purveyors of carcinogens called the consumer internet every day for like 20 years. But these are very dangerous technologies. And if our adversaries were more rational and less violent, I would be in favor of a pause, but they're not.
No.
Right. And I think that that's where we get to this question about, and this is actually a question from the audience came in, how do we, as democratic free countries, balance, as you're talking about, the intelligence gathering with privacy and privacy concerns that we take for granted in the free world? How do we balance that in the new technological era with AI and other developments? Maybe, Anders, let's start with you. I know we're running shorter on time.
Yeah, but my point of departure is we have to continue developing all the new technologies. Of course, there are pluses, there are minuses, but we have to focus on the pluses and introduce legislation and mechanisms that promote transparency, accountability, protect privacy, make sure we have a positive ethical use of new technologies, And that will require oversight mechanisms and regulations. And I think we can manage that. So I'm an technological optimist.
But I agree with this, and you should, if you want to know how to do this, print out the Danish legislation. The Danish legislation is very detailed about how data moves, where data moves, how it moves, who sees it, how it disappears, neutral arbiters. But the most important thing about the Danish legislation is it's arbitrated by Danes, because the problem is you need this legislation and you need someone who's believable, neutral, and pro-West to arbitrate. So it's like you can't go for the completely Swiss neutral model because you need a NATO ally that's not completely in America. It's not in America. It's not in it, but it's clearly anchored, because you can have all the standards in the world, and transparent. The basic core thing is transparency. Standards have to be transparent so everyone in the audience could evaluate them. And this is a huge issue for large language models. I guess we're running out of time, but the large language models, in a large language model, you don't have a custodial relationship to the data, so you can't prove how the decision was made. And this is a constitutional problem for the West, because the way European American legislation works is you have to see how the data was put together and be able to call the data into question. So you have a presumption of innocence. But the arbiter of this has to be a neutral party that people believe is neutral, because even though you have all these standards, the average citizen's going to be like, well, Karp says it's transparent. Okay, well, he's made all this money. No one's going to, it happens, I'm telling the truth, but telling the truth and people believe you're telling the truth are two different things.
I like the concept of a neutral arbiter who has taken sides, right? I mean, this is where the free world and democracies come into play. And what we're talking about is the use of advanced technology in the free world. Are we still in the lead? And to close it out, maybe sort of a yes, no. I think over the course of the last day, we're hearing an awful lot of yes, but, and with the idea that China is nipping at the heels of the free world, either through the stealing of intellectual property or copying. Alex, where are you on? Are we?
It's funny. I'm I think the highest ranked Tai Chi practitioner in the business world. So I appreciate Chinese culture. Tai Chi is an internal martial art, which means you focus on your internal instead of external threats. Almost everyone in this debate is yes, but they're catching up. And my version is, yes, we're in the lead. And if we want to stay in the lead, we'll focus on all of our own problems and fix them. Instead, we're way overly, look, the AI that's being delivered on the battlefield now was not delivered in reaction. You build these things, you build these things, you build the things. The primary threat to us in the West is us not focusing on the resources we have that are unique, and end large debates about people who are misaligned because they have nothing to sell, or because it's vaporware they're selling, or because they don't understand the technology, or people I'm sympathetic with who they don't believe, like a lot of my family believes that, if you just disarm, the adversary will disarm too and play fair. 30% of, I would say, the West believes that. Okay, well, that's just clearly wrong. And, that's a religious view. I pro-religion. That's your religion, but it's just a religion. And so our problem in the West is it's not technological, it's organizational. And I would say to those people who see this differently, we should just be honest that some part of our society believes that pacifism works in the absence of arms, and just treat it as the religion it is. And that's fine, but dialogue's not going to work. Then we should also be honest about the fact that there's just, in the last 5 years, all the relevant technology for the battlefield has been produced in America. And what does that mean? There's some things that are not particularly, everyone in NATO is happy about that. So how are we going to have standards? How are we going to have handoffs? How can we have people have local sovereignty so their technology's there so they understand where the data's going? There's no one in Europe that's going to sign up for data flows going back to America. So these are real issues. Those are our issues, not China and Russia on this, per se.
Very interesting. Anders,
Yeah.
yes, no?
Very short, I would say yes, but we are challenged. And while I agree we should take care of our own problems and challenges, we shouldn't underestimate Putin and Xi Jinping.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Anders.
So, let me just speak about one last thing here. Why does Alex Karp go and do these interviews, these, show up at these summits and things like that, right? Which spends a good deal of time. I mean, this is in, I believe, Copenhagen, Denmark, right? So he's got to travel all the way over there. It's a long flipping flapjack and flight, right? And, he does a lot of these each year, and he spends a lot of his time doing these sorts of things, right? One is Palantir's got an incredible team that's actually building the product. It's not like Alex Karp has to be in there actually building the actual product. That's not what his job entails. Thank goodness he's got other people to do that, right? And at the end of the day, like when he goes to these sorts of things, I can tell you he wins over a lot of folks with a lot of power and a lot of money. A lot of governments, a lot of different government agencies and entities, a lot of companies and executives of companies and people in close contact with people with power. And remember, Palantir is a company that closes $10 million deals, $30 million deals, $50 million deals, $100 million deals, right? These are massive, massive deals. And Palantir's almost like a salesperson in terms of this, okay? Obviously speaking about not just his views, but why Palantir is the answer to a lot of problems, right? And why they're best of breed product. And so without having to get into all the technical nitty gritty stuff, right? He just needs to win folks over, and then we can get into the nitty gritty stuff. You can speak to my sales manager in regards to that or something like that. And so I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And Alex Karp doing good work out there as always. Business is growing very nice, getting the profitability, obviously, 2 quarters in a row, and hopefully many other quarters to go, and then S&P 500, which is another huge thing, not just for the stock price, but for the branding of the company. It's absolutely massive. And so I'm very, very excited about that. I appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thanks so much for being subscribed, folks. If you ever want to say hello to me and you enjoy the content, you enjoy the channel, say hello to me on Instagram, send me a DM. And also, if you want my 6-figure workshop, check out the pinned comment down there. That will be for access to that. It's absolutely free. I recorded it last week. Gives you a lot of value in there for free, and I hope you enjoy that. That's pinned comment down there. Much love as always, and have a great day.